to support and encourage people experiencing a mental health crisis to reach out for professional help. The pandemic has also offered us an opportunity to prepare to roll out mental health first aid online. The course is offered both to the general public as well as within the setting of the workplace. And we also have mental health for youth, which focuses on young people and the professionals that work with them. Over the past 3 years, we have trained in the region of 3,000 people. Today, we are honored to be sharing with you all the experience that we have garnered over these years. And Dragan will now be taking over to give us a specific insight into how we might cope in the context of the pandemic. Dragan, all yours.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I hope you see the screen well. I'm sorry I'm a bit in the dark, but the light I'm using, it's actually not the right one, and my screen was moving up and down a bit. So hopefully it will be better now. What we're going to go this afternoon, as Stefania mentioned, is some reactions people experienced the last couple of months, soon 3 months, and I built a small module about self-care and coping with certain experiences we have, which later on the other panelists will build on into the discussions. And I keep receiving messages that my screen is flashing on and off. I don't know why this is going on, but hopefully
I can see you well, Dragan.
Okay, thank you. That
Even
makes
I'm seeing you well, Dragan. Just go on.
Okay, thank you, because the last thing I want is to disrupt someone who is a bit more sensitive. Okay, what happened the last couple of months, and probably it's not new to you. We went through an experience that we never thought of it. I mean, we went through other traumatic experiences in the past years, one way or another, as a witness from the distance or being nearby. But this little virus caused a lot of disruption in our life and brought a lot of fear and distress. Sometimes I compare these experiences as traumatic for many people, because the reactions we see are very similar to a response to a trauma. One thing we need to be really clear about is that all the reactions we had are just normal reactions to an abnormal situation. It's too early to say that, we have a mental illness or something in the sort. I mean, yes, of course, those who already have a mental illness or any other health condition, maybe they experience this a bit more, at a different strength, and they were a bit more disrupted than others. What reactions we went through? I mean, one of the most common reactions we had is like, we've been separated from the people we love. Many people couldn't see their parents. Many people couldn't see their colleagues and friends. I mean, I personally met other people for spending a couple of hours together last Sunday, which was, not very common for me and my family. I haven't seen most of my colleagues. And every time when we meet people in the office, that's a really, we celebrate this experience, and Stefania can confirm that we actually value something that we used to take for granted. The sense of isolation, it is here, and it probably is going to remain for many, especially if people fall in certain categories. Loss of freedom, yes, it's true. I mean, going to a supermarket and you need to follow a lot of rules to do some simple things. Yes, it restricts my freedom. Some people got bored, and we've seen this even from our research that we're going to, show later on. People had felt that they have nothing to do. Of course, worry. And the worry came about the losses we might potentially have. And some people still worry about some potential losses. Maybe they don't worry that much about losses of loved ones, because I think as a country, we are on the lucky side that, things were managed and we didn't see the pandemic at the full extent. But financial losses, job losses, loss of things that people expected. And if you just lost a holiday, it's not something minor. It's a big thing for many people, especially if they were planning this holiday for a lot. I mean, I know people who are planning like months of trips and everything, and now these plans are not there anymore. A lot of uncertainty. We as humans love to plan. That's, you know, one of the things that we really like to do. We would love to have a structure, and at the moment we can plan in a very short time. People are not used to, and I'm hoping that majority of us actually will learn and go in a short-term goals and plan a bit shorter, because sometimes that's not that bad in life. What happened? We went through state of grief, being individual, as a country, as a nation, and or as the European Union, if you would like to go on a wider scale, and collective and individual state of grief. And we went through all the stages of grief. You know, denial, anger, bargaining, sadness, and acceptance. And yesterday I was talking to a group of people, and one of them said, I skipped denial and anger. I went directly to the other stages. And people move from a stage to a stage. They move up and down. Now, if you take a moment to think about your experiences, let's say I'm always taking the date Friday 13th of March, when, you know, school stopped and everyone started feeling what's going on. Think about how you felt the week after, and you will see at which stage you were at that time, and think about yourself today, and you see where you are compared to to where you were there. So we moved one way or another. If we're at the acceptance stage, it doesn't mean we're better. It doesn't mean we're happy with this. It's the stage where we can do something, you know, to sort things out. And this is not the first time we are experiencing things like that. I mean, this is a period of redefining our definitions of safety and freedom. And if you think about the past 20 years, many things happened. 9/11, Paris attacks, London, mass shootings in America, school shootings in America, a lot of trauma going on there. Brussels, I've met a friend of mine who was in the subway when things happened, and he still remembers, you know, how this affected the life of the city at the time. So we are changing things in our life. And again, yesterday I had someone in a session who mentioned that she was in New York during 9/11, and she told me, I am not that bothered this time. Could it be because I went through something that dramatic and something that life-changing, and maybe my resilience is better? It could be. It could be that she learned how to cope in this type of situations. So we are not there for the first time. And if you rethink your lifestyle, how it changed, the way how we traveled, we adjusted somehow or another. So probably we will adjust to this, and at one point we would not pay that much attention of what we're doing. I mean, how many of you actually pay a lot of attention when you travel? The 100 milliliter rule, you can't carry liquids more than 100 milliliters. I mean, that's something that we got used to. Is it, you know, still valid as a rule? It is, but, you know, we are there and we don't really think about this anymore. Early on this year, we did a research which is called the impact of COVID-19 on mental health in Malta, and we're about to do another one. And maybe Stefania here can, you know, she can give us a bit more an overview what Richmond is, as Richmond we're planning to do, and maybe a bit of an overview about the research.
Thank you, Dragan. Yes, in fact, Richmond was very concerned immediately early on, because we could see that the pandemic would have an impact on the nation's mental health. So we embarked on this research, which we are in the process of replicating for the next few months, supposedly 9 months. And we plan to be able to map how the mental health of the nation will have evolved alongside the pandemic, because as Dragan was explaining, people change their approach, people adjust, and as the lockdown set in, people were feeling more anxious, and now that things have reached a new balance and measures are being released, some people are now feeling anxious because we need to go back, and some people are feeling the length of time that we have been indoors. So we've been seeing a lot of changes in people's mental health. This research had 1,600 respondents, and the first set was carried out in April. At how the work element was impacted, as we can see on the screen, 53.6 of full-timers and an even greater proportion of part-timers expected a decrease in income. And we all know that income is a basic necessity if we want to sustain our basic needs and to sustain our quality of life. Interestingly, that part-timers had a bigger proportion of part-timers had a concern. We were wondering whether it is because of the industries where there are more part-timers, maybe hospitality. And this also reflected in how these people felt. So if you anticipate that you are going to have a reduction in your quality of life, some sadness is to be expected, and people reported feeling depressed on more than 3 days. So obviously, concerns, what we are concerned with, will both affect our emotional well-being, and our emotional well-being will in turn affect how we feel. So we encourage you to respond to the polls that we are now running, because we will be interested in seeing, together with this group who are following this webinar today, how things have possibly changed. Are we still at that stage, or are we feeling differently? Are we now behaving differently? Okay, the screen is not very clear.
Can you see the pie charts?
We can see the pie charts, but the descriptions are a bit small. Let me see whether we could have maybe a full view of the screen.
But the participants can see them.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, we're seeing the screen quite clearly. If you go, those who haven't answered the poll can go to menti.com, and the second poll is available now. Sorry for interrupting, Stefania.
That's okay. If I can see correctly, the majority of people were happy, and okay, we lost that.
Yes, but they continue, the numbers continue growing.
Okay. No.
Yes, should we activate them now?
Can we see?
Yeah, we're seeing.
I'm only seeing that the slide is not active. Okay.
Yes, we're seeing everything now.
That is better. As we can see, the largest proportion of people were happy and hopeful for the future, whereas others were bothered by things, and which don't usually affect us. Okay, so this compares quite well to what we had in the original survey. It's interesting that the younger people were the most affected, especially by isolation. And we had Dr. Natalie Kennelly, who commented about it from the Faculty for Social Wellbeing. It was to be expected that young people who are usually out and about are more impacted. We were also surprised, but later we sort of understood that the older people were more hopeful. Our understanding is that having lived through their lives and experienced a number of setbacks and difficult situations, they might have developed some resilience, which led them to understand that, yes, even this will pass, and we'll be able to continue our lives in some sort of new normal. So
maybe while we're collecting the data, I'll come back in a second. We can have a look on what actually the research found. So now we can compare better.
Exactly.
So this is the same question that we were asking you at the moment, and I'll see at the end what the results is, but that's how the picture looked like back in April.
What we can maybe highlight is that even looking into the different age groups and into gender, females tended to be more fearful and on a longer number of days. So 51% of females reported being fearful on 3 to 4 days, whereas only 15% of males reported being fearful. 43% of males reported being happy on 3 to 4 days, while only 51% of females reported being happy for 1 to 2 days. So it's not just the general focus, but also our gender, which impacts us. The younger people, as we said, were more tending to be lonely. Maybe if we want to stick with time, we might want to move on.
We have another poll for you, which we'll see in a second. And you can go again on Mentimeter and take the next one. I will put the numbers to populate on the screen. So these are the results of the first one, and we are going on the other one. What were your main concerns over the past few weeks? What are your main worries, if I would like to replace the word concerns?
Mm-hmm.
And with no surprise, we see physical comes as well, mental, you know.
Yes. Interestingly enough, it's very interesting that here the mental seems to be overtaking the physical health by a little bit. So people are predominantly concerned with mental well-being, followed closely by physical well-being, and then it seems to be the impact on work. And the last one is managing goals and opportunities.
Yes.
So in April, people were mostly worried about physical health. So when COVID made its appearance, people were mostly concerned about how it would impact them, whether they were going to get infected and what the outcome would be. Primarily about the physical health of their loved ones. Then about the impact on the nation. So we presume the economy, how will the health system cope? Now that we gave the game away, even our poll has shifted. But now that we have experienced lockdown and people have started to feel the impact on their mental health seems to be becoming the leading concern. And this we can also see through the calls that we receive at Richmond on the helpline 1770. Initially, people were calling because they were anxious and concerned about not being infected. Now they are concerned with being lonely and feeling depressed. So how do we respond to this shift in our mental well-being?
So at the moment, what we're going to experience more, and I'm finding more research that, the aftermath of everything we started seeing in terms of psychological wellness. Many researchers are saying that, people start experiencing more symptoms of burnout and probably more like symptoms of stress. Why? Because when we start returning to functioning, the worry of contacting the virus will still be there, the physical safety of people. A number of things we identified during this process are that there are particular groups of people and employees who are more at risk than others. And I would like to mention some of them. We have a big expat community here, and these are people without direct support and structure for them. Going to work is the main, hub for socializing and having some contact. This is a part of a community. It does not exclude local people who feel lonely, and we have an issue with this as well. People who recently had traumatic experiences or they lost a loved one, they went through something. People who still have to attend work, and they still had to attend work during the pandemic when majority of people could stay home, and now they might start feeling more tired from all the things they need to go through. I mean, think about a supermarket employee. I stayed home, but they had to go to work every day. Parents, and this is a category that comes across any type of business, who have to stay home, work, and at the same time homeschooling. So this is a very category that needs a lot of a lot of attention from employers, and also at the state level. People who work from home and they have to stay together, and they have different realities there in terms of, like, for example, family dynamics, domestic violence. People with different personalities. Very often I hear people who are extroverts saying, the fact that I'm an extrovert, it doesn't make me happy staying at home and not seeing other people. I would like to see the people I want to see, not everyone. People with existing health conditions, people with substance use problems, those who are at risk of poverty. Maybe we'll see more job loss in the future, because restarting an economy is not an easy thing. Pregnant women. So these are all people who fall under certain categories, which we need to be more careful with. And something that is good to know, and I follow a lot of sources, and I am particularly interested in the topic of loneliness. And there were some even like data for MALTA in the past years. We are living in a big pandemic of loneliness in a world, in a world perspective, and maybe what's going on at the moment will not help with this. Very quickly, what are the symptoms we should look into? Mainly fear and worry, especially now when people are restarting life, and we see many people actually with high levels of anxiety because they have to go back. Changes in the way how people sleep, their patterns, cannot concentrate, cognitive overload. Many people are tired because they had to juggle with a lot of things, cope with adjusting. And it's not going to stop now, because we need to readjust to where we would like to be, or where we need to be. Social withdrawal, looking drained, tired, pale as well, feeling helplessness, change in appearance, very cynical. I mean, more people become more cynical and criticize things that are around us. Okay, we have another poll, and I would like you to go back to Mentimeter, and this poll is more about what type of support, or did you seek any support during the past nearly 3 months? And I receive very encouraging comments that I'm doing well with changing the slides, a skill that I had to learn as a crash course only an hour ago. But and then thinking about this, we need to actually analyze, when we have more time, what did we gain out of it? Because I know we tend to focus a lot on the losses we have, but probably there are some small things that we gained, and maybe they can improve our life. to a certain extent in the future. Actually, I'm very hopeful that we'll learn something out of this, and maybe we can brainstorm this later on. Okay, majority of people, as expected, they looked for friends and family as their first line of support, and something I was mentioning even as a risk factor. I mean, no friends and family, lack of support, and we were seeing this through our employee assistance program in the past. I mean, a lot of expats, I am an expat as well, but a lot of people coming from abroad were suffering because they don't have anyone to, to support them. Majority of people did not seek support, and that's perfectly fine. I'm sure that majority of us will manage to cope with this, and we'll learn a lesson. Very quickly, just about being overly positive, and we should allow ourselves to be realistically negative and have a bit of a constructive criticism about what's going on, because when we're talking about being very positive, it also can be a negative experience for those who are feeling bad and they are feeling pressed to not express their sadness, if you understand what I mean, because everyone and everything is happy, and we should be really positive. Protective factors. What actually helped people? One of the things we notice, especially at work, is called psychological safety, a concept that finally started coming to Malta. It's something that we've seen abroad. It's where people feel safe in their work community to not be punished for what they believe, not to be humiliated, to express their worries. They're safe to learn and they're safe to contribute. Other protective factors is the way how we balance our work and life, our level of resilience, and we've seen this with younger people who don't have their resilience up to where we would like to be, and our support network, foster our communication and how we communicate with other people, our boundaries, how much we know where to stop certain things or to say no for, and our mindful self-care, how we look after selves. And very quickly, because I know that we're running out of time, how we can actually take care of ourselves. What will be our coping strategies? And later on with the panelists, most of us will go through this in our levels of expertise. So things I can do to support my physical self, how I'm treating my body, because the body is our instrument, the body is our main machine. Are we doing well with the body? And, going back to basics, sleep, eat, rest, move. They sound simple, but they're crucial for everyone. Things I can do to support my emotional self, talking to people, awareness and self-reflection, reading, mindfulness, time that I can spend with myself, even 5 minutes. I know a lot of parents who say, I don't have time. 5 minutes, being mindful. I'm watching a lot of cooking shows, and people say whisking eggs is actually very mindful. Chopping things is actually very mindful. I mean, if I become mindful, I might lose a finger, but that's not, but it's something you can do mindful. Things I can do to support my relationships with other people, my intimate relationships, my relationships with my children. Each relationship is a responsibility, and those who we value, we have to go with the full responsibility, seek help when we cannot really deal with the relationship. Things I can do to support myself at work: proper planning, work boundaries, learning when to say no, knowing when to switch from what's going on around me. Then there are plenty of negative strategies. Unfortunately, people adopt to deal with stress and with disruptions in life. I can mention drinking, substance use, being aggressive and anger, smoking, self-blame, negative self-talk. So these are all negative strategies that we can have. And at the end of all this, coping mechanism and this coping process, what I realistically expect from myself, what balance and what results I expect from myself. I mean, am I going to see a change then and there? What's going to take time? Where to start from? So this is a process that if you cannot do it yourself, you can engage a professional who can help you with this. I mean, it could be a therapist, it could be a counselor, it could be a coach if you would like to go, to non-clinical people. So there are plenty of options someone can use. As Richmond, Stefani already mentioned, we have our helpline, which, again, it was a positive result for us due to COVID. I'm sorry to say this, but we've been trying to do this for 3 years, I think, and we have the number available, but now it happened. We have a psychological service that, people can also attend. We have the employee assistance program that is available for companies, training that is offered, because knowledge at the moment is extremely important, but anyone can find help, and there's a lot of help available through us or through other people that give help. We as Richmond are here to help. Hopefully soon we have some new developments, and we announce them in our effort to become more accessible for everyone. And just to conclude this, I would like to mention that so far this COVID experience was maybe the biggest psychological experiment ever. We had more than 2 billion people who were on some form of restrictions or lockdown, and we might start seeing the results later on this year. I'm talking about stress-related absenteeism and burnout. If we're talking about employment, we know from previous research that after such crisis, people show more reluctancy to go to work, and you might see this. And taking action now can actually help us to lower down the effects of what we'll be seeing in the future.
Thank you very much for that, Dragan. And we'll move swiftly on, because as you said, we're running out of time. And I'd like to invite, we've already seen them join the panel, our partners. We're organizing a conference in November about mental wellness, what's supposed to be today. We, of course, postponed it for obvious reasons, and this is in partnership with the General Workers Union, the Chamber of Commerce, and the Malta Employers Association. So I welcome Josef Bjeja, the Secretary General of the General Workers Union, Andrea Fenech from the Chamber of Commerce, and Joseph Farrugia, the Director General of the Malta Employers Association. We also have the pleasure of having with us Abigail Marmo, who's the CEO of the SME Chamber. And I'd like to invite each one of you very briefly to just tell us why you think why your organization thinks it is important to address issues of mental wellness at the workplace. Maybe you can start, Joseph.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. When we started this project, there was nothing about COVID on the horizon. We didn't think about it. We didn't know anything about it. But we felt that employees were under a lot of stress. And this is something that both employers and trade unions agree about, how we can make each workplace much better than it is currently. Then there was the COVID, and it was an added bonus. Now we are facing two problems as a trade union. We have issues where employees are working, but they are afraid and scared and worried that they will get infected. But we have a larger number of employees, and this is getting even larger, who don't know what would happen in the near future or more long term, if there will be a workplace, if there will be redundancies. So it is opportune, and I think it is the right time that we tackle this, so we can reassure people not that everything will be fine, but that social partners are working to solve problems. But we need to face these problems and together, and that the new norm will not be the same norm that we had before. And even it will be, maybe it will be much better in the future, but things need to change. And we need to tackle this. And health problems are affecting a lot of people. And there are help. I was one of the people that Stefania mentioned that I did the mental health first aid there, and it helped a lot, a lot.
Thank you very much for that, Joseph. I'll pass the word on to Joe Farrugia from the Malta Employees Association. Your thoughts? Why is the Malta Employees Association so concerned about mental wellness? You're on mute, Joe.
Okay. Pardon?
No, you're on mute. Okay, we can hear you now. Thank you.
Okay. It's a pleasure to be involved in this project. And in fact, this project had originated before the outbreak of COVID-19. I believe that a very apt expression at the moment is the Latin term mens sana in corpore sano, because the COVID is a threat to our physical health. However, it brings with it a number of mental challenges as well, at the place of work in particular. We know that the workplace is in itself a social gathering, because the workplace is about doing things together. It provides a sense of self-accomplishment and self-actualization, and also it creates an atmosphere of socializing as well. Therefore, many people feel stressed because they have been detached from this normal reality. Therefore, they are either working in isolation, experiencing perhaps a loss of income, facing uncertainty about their future, about their job, and possibly working remotely can be stressful in itself, especially if they are looking after children at the same time and not knowing when things are going to get back to normal. I think that the return to work will also will involve numerous adjustments in work organization. So we hear about the new normal. And the new normal will certainly not be the old normal. I believe that in spite of all the negative aspects of the corona crisis, it is a learning experience as well. Therefore, I think we are valuing more the value of relationships, the value of interaction, the value of being accepted, the value of looking after others, even worrying about others. That is something which is positive in itself. And I think that in the weeks to come, there will certainly be many more developments that might be related as well to mental health. And so that if and when people return to work as normal, they will have the right mental framework to go about their duties in a normal way.
Thank you very much, Joe, for that. I'll pass swiftly on to Andrea from the Chamber of Commerce, another of our partners in this project. So we thank, of course, all three of our partners for making these events possible. Andrea, the Chamber of Commerce and mental health.
Good afternoon, first of all, and thank you, Mark, for this for today's invite. I think, yes, as rightly pointed out by my colleagues previously, the Chamber, MBA, and the German Workers' Union have in fact joined forces with you as Working Town in the last months, in fact, to promote the importance of mental health at the workplace and beyond that. As the Chamber, we believe that mental health doesn't really get the attention it deserves. These extraordinary times, as already highlighted, require and the need for a greater focus on this theme. After all, mental health is the basis for a good life. Resilience, creativity, innovation, and productivity. We have never really faced a similar situation before. We don't know how long it will last and what the outcome will be at the end of it. And it is very likely that our lives, as previously pointed out, will be very different from what we knew only 11 weeks ago, really and truly, because we think it's something that has happened such a long time ago, when in reality it's been only with us for 11 weeks. And it is imperative, I would add, that we put a greater emphasis on the mental well-being of our entire society. May I also add that it is not only the workforce and broader society that has found itself in difficulty. Employers and business owners are facing unprecedented stress, and therefore require any necessary support they can get in view of the uncertainty posed on their businesses. I would have to add, and I wish to underline this point, there is really no shame in showing vulnerability. We need to get rid of the stigma surrounding the stopping and openly discuss it, not only through valuable initiatives such as today's event, but also in promoting open dialogue at the workplace between all the parties concerned. I don't wish to add much more, just want to conclude by saying that a sound mental health is the foundation of a healthy and productive society. And I look forward, of course, to the interventions by the other speakers in the panel later on.
Thank you very much. We'll move swiftly on to Abigail because we're running late, and I want to finish at 3 o'clock as we promised, and we have some interesting interventions from the other panelists. Abigail, the Chamber of SMEs.
Hello, Mark, and everyone. Thank you very much for roping us in. I really appreciate this. As a Chamber of SMEs, representing SMEs and specifically the smallest businesses, I like to say, and I really do believe it is the case because from the experience I have through my interactions with our members, that places of work are like family units. They are tight-knit, they depend on each other, they support each other. So there is no better place. These are not people, your employees. We tell them that your employees are not people that they meet just once or once a week. We spend so much time together, such an important chunk of our life that yes, mental health at work is also very important as much as it is at home. And from our end, we are doing quite a bit of work in supporting our members throughout COVID. And what I wanted to say is that at the moment, we are tackling the aspect of uncertainty, this difficulty of not knowing when COVID will end, how it will change, what will come next, is causing a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. We don't know exactly where we are going. So we are trying to emphasize how important it is to get to terms with the current situation and accept it and try to walk towards some kind of normality, as normal as we can, because that will do much more for our health than staying at home and being afraid of going out.
Thank you very much, Abigail, for that. In the meantime, we've invited the other panelists. So I thank once again our partners, the General Workers Union, the MEA and the Chamber, and also Abigail. They will be stepping down from the panel now. And I invite our other panelists. We have a panel of 8 people with only about 10, 12 minutes left. So I invite everyone to be brief. We have some questions which have come in from the audience, which I will pass on directly to the relevant panelists. There was a suggestion, because we're not going to be able to go over these questions. Yes, we will be preparing some form of document or some form of follow-up interaction so that all the questions that were asked will be addressed. And we're also going to plan other events in the run-up to our event in November. So I welcome our 8 panelists. By the way, if you want bios for all these people, rather than me wasting more time introducing them, if you go to mentalwellnessconference.eu, you will find bios for all the panelists who are with us today. And in the interest of time, I will skip the introduction, so to speak, and the niceties, and go straight to the questions and address each question to each of the panelists. So first, I have a question for Philip Ingram, who I'm seeing. And Philip, how do we communicate the importance of mental wellness issues to companies and people who have not had to deal with such issues in their own life, or who have been hiding the fact that they have been dealing with these issues?
Mark, thank you very much indeed for inviting me on this fantastic event, and I will be brief. I don't think it's important that we communicate it. I think we have to educate the community and bring in a culture of understanding that mental health issues can affect everyone. 1 in 4 people are there. For businesses, if they sat down and really looked at how much time and how much money they were paying because people were having to take time off through mental health issues, they'd realize the value in the business. So it's important that we get education that is enabling the culture within our communities and our business communities to understand that this is an issue that can be dealt with very easily, and get that culture prevailed throughout society, and then things will be much easier.
Thank you very much for that. Patrick, I'll pass on to you now. What can businesses do to help promote an awareness of mental wellness in the workplace, both for employees and for bosses and for owners? You're on mute, Patrick. Maybe you can unmute yourself. Patrick, we're not
okay. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Thanks. I've been hearing the other speakers, and obviously I really support all that has been said. I think what's really important in this moment is that companies and organizations take a systematic and structured approach to this issue, because we are already experiencing a strong wave of people whose responses to the stress and pressure in relation to COVID has tipped an often very fine balance between coping and not coping. As an organization, Potential, we always promote Richmond because we are very, very happy with the work that they do. We think there's no way to thank you for the support that you give organizations. And we also have our own corporate wellness program that we offer on a more micro level. And my message today is that we need to be proactive. Organizations need to respond to this by taking a structured and very systematic approach to promoting well-being and preventive measures in the workplace.
Thank you, Patrick, very much.
Thank you.
I'll pass on to Wendy, better known as the Mindfulness GP. Thank you for joining us. So what is, Wendy, we hear a lot about mindfulness. What is the scientific value of mindfulness, and how can such techniques become more understood and accessible, especially in the workplace?
Thank you, Mark, and hi, everybody. Well, as you mentioned, mindfulness is definitely out there. We know we're hearing a lot about mindfulness, and thankfully, yes, in the last 20 or 25 years, there has been a growing body of evidence in support of mindfulness-based interventions all around in health, in schools, and within the workplace. I mean, mindfulness in its sort of traditional meaning, it is just about cultivating awareness of one's being around life and the world around them. And it has been sort of packaged, I guess, secular or therapeutically to include other modalities to make it more effective. And simply with regards to mindfulness, it can be better understood really or accessible by just engaging an open-mindedness approach and just being a little bit more curious and just having a holistic approach to well-being, which includes other means and ways of approaching health and well-being, especially mental health. We've mentioned about, there's been a lot of talk about other ways of raising awareness about mental health. Mindfulness is yet another tool, essentially. It's not a band-aid, it's not a fix, it's another tool that can be used with other ways to assist people to cope better with their own mental health.
Thank you for that, Wendy. I'll pass on swiftly to Jane. Piper, welcome, Jane. Thank you so much for joining us. So how has being constantly connected in this day and age, and I think it's even more so now that we've gone through lockdown, how has this affected our mental well-being, and how can focus help us reduce anxiety?
Definitely, it's a huge issue at the moment because so many people are online, and a lot of the research I'm seeing is that because we're not getting the same level of social connection through video conferencing, that it is affecting people's mental health. And as lockdown is easing now, I think it's important for people to get out there and reach out and start with real human-to-human connection and build up that social support. It's been necessary to be online during these times, as it's the only way to keep connected, but it needs to obviously switch now, and as we discussed, it's a coping mechanism at the time to be able to reach out and get that social support. But let's move now to some more face-to-face social support if we have the opportunity.
Thank you, Jane, for that. Very interesting. I'll pass on to Viviana now. Viviana is our cultural awareness expert, and we talk a lot about expats, and the question I have for her is about expats. Are expats more vulnerable? Dragan mentioned them as well in the presentation. Are they more vulnerable when it comes to mental wellness issues?
Yes, thank you, Mark. I'm also really honored to be here with you. I think, yes, as Dragan mentioned, there are, and specifically in this time, we are seeing that because, and we know that they can be more at risk of mental health and mental well-being. Since the beginning of the relocation, if they're not prepared to relocate in another country, they can have a cultural shock. And they can go through a cultural shock, and this cultural shock, of course, can be also even worse during a pandemic, because as he was mentioning, there's no that support network or the same like support network, and you're also in between countries, and you are worried about your family back home, and maybe your family that is with you in the new country, or about yourself. You know, there is all this uncertainty. You don't know when you can go back home, and then there is also this idea of where is home. Then for expat is also more stronger and maybe sometimes more complicated.
Thank you, Viviana. Robin, how do mindset and attitude impact mental wellness? You talk a lot about mindset and attitude in your work.
Yes.
How can people gain more control over the way they think?
Thank you, Mark. And yes, I agree with everyone else. It's a pleasure and a privilege to be a part of this great initiative. I've been talking a lot and been actually asked to support team members and teams working remotely. And with regards to mindset and attitude, it's really helping them understand that they have no control over the circumstances that are happening around us, but what we can control is our own thoughts and attitude. And so helping them to appreciate that they have it within them if they can just take some different perspectives. And I'm doing a lot of work with gratitude, setting people up in the morning with gratitude, and really looking at focusing on what is good rather than all this that is bad, because there's a lot of information out there. So really helping them to focus on what they do have control of rather than what they don't.
Thank you, Robin. And we have two more people, so I really hope that they get the chance to give us their quick thoughts. Martin, it's all well and good to plan ahead, but what about emergencies, mental health emergencies? What happens then? What can organizations do to be as prepared as possible? What if the unpredictable happens?
Thank you. So I come at this from being a hostage and crisis negotiator for about 20 years now. And that's dealing with people in an immediate life-threatening crisis in front of you that you're witnessing. And when you witness such events, you yourself are stressed. And what tends to happen is we default, because it's easy, straight to giving advice, problem solving, trying to influence and trying to change somebody's behavior. But unless you deal with their immediate emotions and you get them out in the open and you talk to them, then the person can't actually listen to your advice. So your words are actually quite useless. And what we have is a negotiation stairway where we will actively listen, which is listening out loud with your mirroring, emotional labeling, pacing and leading, effective silence, whatever you use at that time. And by doing that, you will demonstrate empathy, which will build rapport. And once you've got that rapport, that is the only time that we actually try and influence and persuade. Because to say to somebody, put down that knife, come away from that cliff edge, whatever that crisis may be, initially, until you've dealt with those emotions, which is the hard work, then your words are useless.
Harrowing stuff, Martin. Thank you for that. And we'll be hearing more, obviously, in our next seminars. Finally, Rachel, or Sasha, as most of you might know her. I have an interesting comment here. Mental health is not really always treated like other illnesses, right? It's not given the importance that health and safety is, for example, in terms of regulations. How can therapy and medicine, what role can therapy and medicine play in addressing mental wellness, and how can we help companies realize that mental health is just as important as other health issues?
Absolutely, Mark. I mean, the mind can get sick just as any other organ can get sick. So I think my main message is that help is out there. Science does show that therapy does work, and so do medications work. So when somebody is beyond the normal kind of adjustment or reacting to a stressful situation, when a stressful situation is perhaps affecting the way they're functioning at work or the way they're functioning at home, then that person should reach out. And when they do reach out, they will find help. So there's no shame in doing that.
Rachel,
unfortunately, we see a lot of people who are afraid to reach out, and even seeing a psychiatrist, is seen as something embarrassing. So.
Well, one of the things that we're trying to do is also address the stigma. I think one of the positive sides of COVID, I think Stefania will agree, is that it might become easier to deal with the stigma going forward, with more people having experienced firsthand issues of mental health. We're over time, I'm afraid. Do we have chance to share the results of the first poll? Dragan, can we just maybe show the results of the first poll? And with the screen over there, so it looks as though most people seem to be expecting a second wave in the winter, followed closely by we have to adjust after this to a new normal. So we will follow up with the questions which weren't answered by email. We'll be announcing other seminars. I want to draw your attention to a conference we're organizing on the 19th of November, entitled Mental Wellness at the Workplace. All of the panelists and speakers you've seen today will be there, plus others. If you go to mentalwellnessconference.eu, you will find more information together with ticket prices. We have an early bird, which we've extended until the end of July. I want to thank everyone very much. We had 230 people attend this webinar, so it's really been an honor to have you all here, listen to us. Most of you are still here, so thank you, even though we're 2 or 3 minutes late. And I won't keep us even later than this. So with that, I will conclude, and I will follow up with more information for everyone from the email. Thank you so much, and see you next time, and hopefully see you in November. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. People are leaving slowly, so I'll be sending out a survey. I should have sent the link in the chat, but I'll send it to everyone by so that we can get some feedback on how the participants think we can maybe do better next time. And I look forward to we'll probably plan 2 or 3 run-up webinars before the event in November, and I look forward to having you all there again. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Pleasure.